So here I am now in Photoshop, and I'm going to bring all of the previous screen grabs that I've shown you and the specific ones that I've mentioned just roughly 2 minutes ago, 4 minutes ago, where I had the various materials modes for the same angle. I'm going to now take those layers, put them into the same Photoshop file, and toggle them on and off and see which attributes of which materials I would like to include as my base before I start applying any digital brushwork. And one quick thing I want to mention is that usually overlay and soft light are good modes to select for your layer modes when toggling your steel materials on and off. And one thing I'm doing already is I'm really trying to capture the silhouette of the ship design as I even before I get started, because it's going to help the process, help me along this phase as things become more and more resolved. You'll see that working in this way, like getting a nice clean path to grab or a selection to be able to grab, and basically it's creating a frisket or a mask. Is going to be so useful for you to be able to get to that final resolve, get that finished look. And another thing too is I want to mention is I'm going to, obviously we're detailing. We're in that finishing stage now. And there is this idea of doing the thumbnail. It's not a revolutionary one. It's something that I've been taught by my instructors. My instructors have been taught by their instructors, and so on and so on. And it's actually it's an idea that I became familiar with when I was reading, when I was a young artist in art school, reading a creative illustration, and by Andrew Loomis, and I was really quite absorbed by the idea of process, right? The idea that you can set yourself up to render a good finish, a good, and the saying goes in art school, this was, I think, a painter's saying is, a good start will more than likely lead to a good finish, and it's very true. And in attempting to render an illustration or to paint or capture a scene that is happening before your eyes, whether it be a landscape or whether it be a figure or whether it be an industrial scene, car, what have you. You you realize that the end result of your image is very much dependent upon the frame of mind that you were in when you started the image. And that is to say, if you have a bad finish, or a finish that you weren't necessarily considered successful, you weren't happy with, or just sort of rubs you the wrong way, it's more than likely happened in the start. And that is to say that you probably had a bad start. So more than likely, if a good finish is going to be dependent upon a good start. So make sure that your starts, and by starts I mean your thumbnails, your plans, your initial ortho studies, have behind them a sort of a kind of obsessive attention to the forms, to the sense of simplification of those forms, really finding a strong silhouette for your design. More often than not, if you can redraw your design quickly and efficiently, that is to say, if you can do it in as few strokes as possible, more than likely your design has been properly scrutinized up to this point and you can move on. So we're really aiming for strong silhouettes, strong, readable, identifiable silhouettes. What is the character of your design, in this case, in this ship? And for it to kind of have this hulking, unwielding, sort of slow, but not weak, powerful. All of those things that, for instance, a turtle might have, all those characteristics. Well, certainly, hopefully, it's more than just serendipitous. It's certainly was my objective. So remember all of those things as you go through the process, and you're wondering, gosh, this seems so tedious. Should I have to do these thumbnails? I pretty much know it's going to have wings and a cockpit's going to be in the front. And no, I really think that it's your design's going to benefit from having those good starts. That is to say, you'll have better finishes from better starts. So, okay, here we are now. Like I say, we're detailing. This is the detail part of the whole thing. Still, in terms of the painterly process, I'm working my masses first. I'm determining my light source. That's already been done in Carpathia. And I'm painting my shadows first as I'm trying to build the volume of this design. I'm trying to build the masses of these forms. And you always start with your shadows, and you build your with tones, very sort of translucently. That is to say, not opaque, not with a thick medium. And this is, again, very much painters speak here. But as you build your shadows and you want to build up to your core form, that is to say, the corner of the box, right? Because we're just simplifying these forms. In a form language, we're seeing these more complicated forms in their simpler state as mere boxes in order to comprehend how to light and how to indicate the light phenomena onto our design. So really see that simple statement, and with the painter's philosophy, constantly we're building our shadows, and then you work to your lights. So your lights are going to be your last hits of detail, and as well, I'm trying to break up the design in a pleasing way so that I don't have too much detail, and it's not detail everywhere, because I think that would just overwhelm the viewer. Too much information might just sort of be too hard for the viewer to process, for the mind to process. So be selective, and have an editor's voice at this point, and don't just detail everywhere. Move around the design, like I say. Don't just be stuck in one point. And as you can see, I'll work from front to back, from left to right of the design. And it's important as well in this phase to know when to stop. So chances are, if you work broadly as you go, you won't have, as again another painter's term, as they say, killed an area, which is to say, you've just overly rendered. You've applied too much labor onto the image, and thereby making the image seem a bit stiff, and you begin to beat that dead horse. So at this point, you also want to keep your brushes simple. I've really probably only have at this point used only 3 brushes, three brushes, I would say. My square, which I will chisel at any angle depending on how I need it, and that is, I will distort the shape in the brush properties aspect in Photoshop. And the round brush with the soft setting, the soft brush setting, and then the hard brush setting. So it's really just those three brushes, perhaps a fourth, which would be a variation of any of those brushes somewhere in between those extremes. And that should pretty much be enough for you to describe any form that you would need to at this point, because the point is here is to simplify, keep things extremely clear, extremely graphic, extremely readable. And by minimizing your medium and by having that discipline when you apply that medium, I think it will translate to a more readable painting. So we're choosing to be a bit more graphic with it, but still it's still a very tonal image. So things though are very much broken up with that strong light and shadow shape. And we've established that first, like I've said, a primary light source will always give you a good grounding for how to then figure out your light and your shadow pattern, and keep your values very very clean and very consistent. And that is to say, your light values and those values that are even in your midtones, which is still the property of your light shape, should never be darker than the light tones of your shadow shape. So the dark tones of your light shapes should never be darker than the light tones of your dark shape. I know that's a lot to break apart with just words, but hit the rewind button and play that over again if you need to, because there be gold in them hills, as they say. But okay, back to all seriousness. So yes, you really want to just study the light and how the light falls off of your forms, the forms of your design. And you really want to depict that in as clean a way as possible. And I will apply a little bit of bounce light and a little bit of influence of the light from the sky. And that will allow me to give just a little bit of variation within the shadows as well. And I think having variations within your shadows, pushing a hue slightly towards one color family, just slightly towards, not all the way towards. So you're just pushing the wheel or the knob slightly over and not cranking the wheel all the way to the right or to the left. And by doing that, you give that variegation that reality has, that life has. And there's always, especially in terms of light and color and observing light and color and their phenomenon, their attributes, they're constantly influencing one another, especially in the shadows. So light light that is bouncing off of a red object would cast its red influence into pools of shadows that are nearby that can then absorb that red light influence. So remember those things. More often in shadows than in lights, that's going to happen. Like I say, your light source is going to be that dominant, that primary, the sun, if you will. And nothing's brighter than the sun for us on Earth. And so in that way, you keep things very, very simple, and you just stay disciplined in that way. Now, I'm also giving areas of rest within the design, and I'm having areas that are just sort of broad, sweeping panels of in this case steel, but whatever material you choose. And I think it's important to have moments of rest. That is to say, just again, not detail everywhere or detail for the sake of detail. And by selectively editing your details, I think it will really bring a beneficial amount of focus to those areas. So if you want to say, in this case, I want to feature the landing rig, I'm certainly going to figure out ways to call attention and certainly do that with my details. Um, and you'll see as the image progresses along how I'll do that. Having pops of or blips of light, for instance, in pools of shadow would do just that. And by putting on my painter's cap, excuse me, my painter's beret, I can't avoid the joke. Then you will be in the right frame of mind. You know, you're accessing that spirit. So you'll be able to, again, like I say, very deftly and very broadly apply those observations onto what was just a very, very standard low poly screen grab of a again, it's a well well observed and well put together model with a very strong design focus in mind. And again, all of those things I think are just ways to allow yourself to be able to make this part of the process that much easier. So that way you're just moving ahead and you're not looking back. Nothing's more frustrating than thinking you've got something pretty clear in your mind and just rushing to get to the finish, not doing any of your prep work, and just realizing how little you do know about the thing that you've set out to design. And it will show, again, like I say, as you try to achieve your end accomplishment. I think it will suffer from not having done just a little bit of obsessive observation and attention to detail, and just things as the way they are and ought to be. You know, like I say, the more you know about reality, I think the more you can affect your given reality. And I think certainly the more believable that reality is presented to an audience or to a viewer, the more engaged they will be into that visual journey. So basically, you've got them on that theme park ride. So, and that's a great place to be. It's a great place to be able to access and have your art and have your design communicate. It's a lot of fun to be able to ask yourself what if, and that's always the spirit that I'm accessing from the get-go. It's taking what I've observed from reality and all of the intrinsic things that pique my curiosities. And like I say, I've got encyclopedia of aircraft on my shelf, and I've got my Sid Mead by my side, and all those things keeping me warm at night to allow me to be inspired, to take me out of myself, and to again give me something new, and something that I can then perhaps adopt in my own design curriculum and my visual sort of vocabulary. And it's comes with also just practice. Just draw those boxes again and again and again, and apply markers on top of paper just to be able to access that form awareness, and that just seeing being in touch with building the forms on the page. And it's a fun thing to do. Like I say, it's a fun thing to see these simple spheres and cylinders and boxes become objects that have a high level of animation to them, some high animus capability here. So it's a fun thing. And like I say, getting to the details now. Certainly the decals, finding areas and where I had areas of rest are now opportunities for me to just hit those areas with just bits of color. In this case, I may waver from this color, this yellow. Um, I like this yellow. It's a very typical sort of caution yellow. Not to say that's a bad thing, but I might play with that a little bit, for better or worse. I mean, I think right now it's just my only motivation is just why not just kind of playing with something new. Um, it will be a bit more playful, I think, in spirit. I think just by virtue of that little change. Uh, but that's kind of what I mean by the whole process and all the bits within the concept process and how all of those things really do influence the end result. So that journey of 1,000 footsteps, depending on where you step, will certainly take you to a different end point. But certainly a part of it too. It's getting glimpses of where I'm headed, but at the same time, I'm trying to surprise myself. So I'm constantly asking myself questions, but I'm trying to sort of, whisper in my own ear to provide myself at least, if not the right answers, answers that might sound right at this point. And you build on that. Your mind will really start grabbing on things as you go. So sometimes, like I say, all it takes is one thing for you to attach onto, to have the other 800, things that come into play when doing these illustrations and these designs, um, that will affect those next decisions and those next steps in a better way, hopefully. Once you've applied a good base, I think you can start using more effects type brushes. I'm going to add bits of grime and wear and tear with a special effects brush, something that is just going to give a sense of grease and just basic usage, so that this thing isn't so right off the shelf. And it'll give it a sense of realism as well. The fact that it's been used, it's not one day out of the factory, but it's been out there. It's experienced some battle and lived to tell the tale. All those kinds of things build a sense of story around your design as well. So be aware of that as you go, and don't get too heavy-handed, because again, you really want to just describe the forms clearly. That's number one still at this point. And you can see even with the background, I'm not you know working on it yet. I'm really just focusing primarily on the main design. And the background, though, I'm going to have to, of course, do something that is a bit more applied than our previous background applications, which were in some cases just a splash of tone, in other cases a more graphic sense and breakup of space, and a sense of environment or a sense of place for this for our previous draftings and drawings. Whereas now it's going to be somewhat photo representational, just because it has to be incorporated into along with this design here, and the expression, or that is to say the buildup of medium. It really has to register in that same way. So it's best to not paint yourself in a corner by say dropping a painting of your design into the picture of a background, because then you're going to have to get your design to that standard. So I would choose to work your design first, and then apply it into a background and work them both consecutively at at around 3/4 of the way, and you'll see that I will begin to do that as well. So, okay, now in terms of the function of this ship, its main function for me is a bomber. I initially wanted to do a bomber drop ship type thing. So the fact that it has a capacity to carry a vehicle, it has an extended cargo capacity in its undercarriage. And on the sides, I'm building up some armory, and that would be where the missiles would perhaps drop from. I've built and you can see the local color that I've chosen would be a computer system, kind of. Basically, what I'm playing with is that this ship is slightly self-automated, and all of these sensors that are built around the perimeter of the ship would have visual information that is then gathered from the central hub of these computers, and that would be the white panels on the central part of the Sonella, and then on the missile silos on the sides there, again, that white area, the local color that is white with the red strips, those would be the computer and the processing center for all things, sensor and self-automated of this ship. And for me, the dark panels that are on the white computer surface would be a sort of exhaust. I mean, obviously computers would generate a high amount of heat. So thinking about then venting out that heat from the top and having those, char marks registered on the white, all those kinds of things I'm thinking about. And that's the narrative, right? That becomes the narrative aspect that is driving the brush, my hand. So it's really, when I'm choosing a various color to contrast versus another area of the design, it's primarily thinking of those functional type aspects, and that's really what drives the saying form following function. So function first, and the form should just fulfill that 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 first impulse, and that is, what is this thing? Why is this thing even built? What is it assembled to do?